So a couple of years ago, almost 10 years now, my cousins from Orlando start telling me about this youth pastor, Justin. I had just kind of started working in youth ministry, and so as my cousins were telling me about this youth pastor, Justin, I got a little I got a little jealous because they kept talking about how great he was and how on one particular service, my cousin Nicole couldn't show up, so her other two siblings went. And so this youth pastor, Justin, went around acting as if my cousin Nicole was there. And so they went and they got coffee, and he was like, "Oh, hey, Nicole, this is your coffee." And they kept taking pictures with the siblings and leaving room for Nicole. So they kept talking about this guy, Justin, and how great he was and how much he made them feel at home at church. Fast forward a couple of months later, and I'm at this big church conference, and I'm not gonna lie, I just wanted to kind of miss one of the sessions. I wanted to get out before the lunch crowd left, and I wanted to get my lunch and be back, but I didn't necessarily know when we had to be back for the session following. So I look at this guy as I'm sitting in the lobby, there's a session going on. I look at this guy with a badge on, and I go, "Man, do you know when we have to be back?" And he goes, "No, actually, we're looking to leave because we want to beat the lunch group." And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's what we're doing." And so I turn to introduce myself. I say, "I'm Chris. I'm the youth pastor over at Metro Life." And he goes, "Oh, I'm Justin. And I'm the youth pastor over at City of Life Church in Kissimmee." I said, "Wait a minute. City of Life, Pastor Justin." He's like, "Yeah, man." I'm like, "Do you know my cousins, the Munizis?" Before I knew it, I realized I was talking to the guy that had made my cousins feel so special in church. Fast forward almost 9 full years later, he's one of my best friends. He's a guy that whenever I really need to get a sense of the bigger picture of what God may be doing, I call Justin. He's preached at our church so many times. He's preached to me, spoken into my life so many times. And I have to tell you, he's on a short list of people in my life that I would say is a gift from God to me. And so during this season, I thought it would be so cool as he is still a pastor at the same church. We share such similar DNA. I thought it would be amazing to have Justin come in and have a little discussion for our sermon portion tonight, a little discussion between me and Justin. So sit back, relax, and listen to me and Pastor Justin. All right, welcome Metro Young Adults. I am here with, honestly, one of my favorite people, and I believe he's going to be one of yours as well, Pastor Justin McNeil.
Hey,
Why
hey.
don't you greet everybody, buddy?
What? Hey, I'm happy to be with you. I wish I was in Miami because it's my second favorite place on the planet, and I feel like all of my cousins are at Metro Life Church, so I'm bummed that I can't be there, but happy to at least hang with you for a bit and praying for you guys. It's crazy right now, and I know Miami can be crazy, but our prayers are with you. We love Pastor Steve, Pastor Mary, and Pastor Chris, and all the ladies down there, and the whole family. And so we're praying for you guys and believing for the best in your situation.
You're amazing. And let me tell you, I know our young adults are going to see that by the end of this. I mean, I make a big deal about who I allow to lead me, and I make a big deal all the time to them about the two men that I've submitted my life to.
Mm,
I'm equally as intentional about who I really allow around me.
so
And
good.
man, when it comes to our friendship, it is, I said it in the introduction, it is one of my absolute greatest blessings to know that we're friends and that we do life together. And if only we had like an hour plus a year to
Yeah,
talk about like just the different coincidences that we've walked
it's
into. It's insane, but
the
I,
best. I think it's so important though. Like this is nothing to do with anything, but what you're saying matters because we're at the point in our lives, like young adulthood, moving into like moving forward in life, even sociologically, psychologically, your friendship circle is cementing. Like something is finalizing in these years right here, college years, moving right after college years, where you have got to make some final and weighty choices because statistically from here forward, your life doesn't have that capacity to let those major voices in. You're making those choices right here, right now about how your life is going to be impacted by the people you let in. And I think what you're saying is so smart. We have to be intentional. And I'm just like hyper emotional because I've been locked up in my house for a month. So if we start talking about how much we love each other, this call will get way too emotional. So
there'll never be
we'll
any
never
kind
get
of
there.
value to anyone watching. But honestly, young adults, listen, whenever I happen to get on the phone with Justin, it is as if God allowed the exact same movie to play, and we're at the end credits, and we're just talking about what's happened. It is
sure.
insane. And so when it comes to what you're talking about, we're very protective of who we allow to speak into our young adults' lives and the lives of our church people, and especially during a time like this. So if you're watching, know by having Justin on here, it is not just to do something cool. It is because we have such kindred spirits. And I just believe there's something so valuable that you're going to hear come from his spirit today. Justin, we've been doing a series on TikTok. We talked a little bit about it. I hate the app. I can't.
Are you going to make me dance?
Huh?
Are you going to make me dance?
I may or may not. I have a Twitter poll going on about it. Okay. I don't like the app. I don't like the app because I think it's just over glorifying some things a little bit more than other apps do that I'm not a fan. So I have to preface it because we're also, when we hang up here for young adults, I also go and film videos for our youth team and parents saying, make sure your kids aren't on TikTok. So I have to kind of preface it.
Major disclaimers.
It has to be. But we are talking about the times that we're in. And I would love to hear you connect a little bit about something that we were just talking about. You know, we have a lot of college students, a lot of college athletes, a lot of people who feel like they're in the prime of their life. A lot of people who are making things happen, whether that be relationships that they'll carry for the rest of their life. You know, we know that there were a lot of athletes who lost years of eligibility. And yes, they might get the year back, but they were already going to get a job, so it doesn't work out. There's all of this seemingly that's been lost in the area of the prime of our lives. And I wanted to ask you, do you think it's even possible with God to lose or waste time?
Whew. That's a big one. And I don't have like a perfectly mapped out direction for this because this is something I'm wrestling with. I think, honestly, I'm glad you're asking the question because I think all of us are wrestling with it, sitting in our houses like this and having to look into the face of how much our schedule was our God. At least that's been my experience. Like, I was doing so much for God in my schedule, but there was something about my schedule that gave me a sense of importance, gave me a sense of purpose. And when that gets stripped away, now I have to ask myself, like, what am I really doing here? Am I wasting time? Have I lost my chance? Have I lost time? And thinking of like college athletes, college students who are in the prime of their plans, that's a big question. And so I think there's two sides to the coin that I was thinking about, and hopefully this is an encouragement to you. The first is a verse that came to mind that I think it's one of those verses that you cling to if you grew up in church. It comes from the book of Joel. It's Joel 2, and it's 2:25. God says, I'll restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten, the crawling locust, the consuming locust, the chewing locust, my great army which I sent among you. You shall eat in plenty and be satisfied. And he talks about restoring the time, the years. Now, obviously, we have to kind of throw it back to an agricultural society that these people worked so hard for harvest, and they put so much effort and time into the literal fruit that their crop would bear. But sometimes that crop would be destroyed by locusts. It would be destroyed by a season that was unfavorable. And so it's like all that work to go from seed to plant to fruit. That's like 3 major stages. I'm not preaching that, but I could. But all of that work to get to harvest, and then the locust comes and chews it up. And I think that's probably how a lot of people feel right now. I mean, I'm even working alongside some of our interns are high school graduates, and this was their year to do all of their big high school stuff, about to step into our internship program. Their prom is done, their graduation's done, like it's all gone. And that feeling I understand of putting all that effort into a harvest, and then right as the fruit is being born, something comes and chews it up. And so the promise that's there in Joel, for me, is an encouragement that God says, I will restore the years that were stolen. I'll restore. And to me, when I think about that, like, let's think, it's not like God is going to bring us in a time machine to bring back literal years. I think what he's saying is the years of work and the years of fruit, the result that you had put so much into, when something outside of your control happens and you had commissioned this to God, and then it seems like it all gets stolen from you, God's saying, don't you worry. I'm the God of results. I'm the God of harvest. And even though you were the one watering and tending, you didn't make the fruit grow. God's the one who makes the fruit grow. We can't force it to happen. We just do our part, and then he's the one who does it. And so what he's saying is, I'll do it again. I can cause the fruit to come again in anything the enemy has stolen. So that's, I guess, the initial encouragement that I have for the young adults, is that God is able to restore to you anything that was taken, and anything that feels lost, and anything that feels stolen. And you put so much work into everything, but God's the one who causes fruitfulness. He's the one who opens doors. He's the one who brings opportunity and scholarship and relationship and career. He's the one that does all of those things. And so thinking that, man, it's all done now because the world's shut down, let's remember that God is the one who brought it in the first place, and he can do it again. So in that sense, I think that we have to take a lot of courage in how we face this, because not all is lost. Time is not over, and the time that I put into my life isn't wasted. God can restore anything that was stolen. So that's the first side of the coin. I don't know if you want to bounce back with it.
That was incredible, and my mind.
I think we've all felt that, though. Like, my work is wasted, all that time. We've all felt that, and I think we all do. It's just exaggerated right now, like nothing any of us have ever faced before, because it's all of us at the same time.
We've had this conversation on Monday nights the last couple of months, really, where we were doing a series called Clickbait, and it's just a mental battle, right? And in one of the nights we actually
tag out so you don't tap out. Is that what you're talking about? Because that changed my life. I deeply stalk everything that is Metro YA, like everything. I'm basically there. I'm that creeper in the back who's like, oh, so good, so good. Trust me, I'm all about it.
Well, to that end, guys, I told you, Justin's amazing. to that end, one of the things that we actually talked about is that the past is not dead. It is actually alive and well. And the way that what I mean by that is, it's so weird how you can make 9 decisions in a row perfectly. If you make the 10th one and it's wrong, it somehow unredeems all the other 9. But in the same way, you can make the same mistake 9 times.
Come on, man.
On the 10th time you get it right, it redeems everything backwards.
Wow.
So, like, think about this. You don't want to have 12 successful dating relationships. You want to have 11 unsuccessful ones and the 12th one to hit.
Yeah.
But then it means that your dating life was successful. So in the same way, anyone watching, Corona and quarantine will be our past one day.
Yeah.
And the actions that we take at that point will be able to go back and redeem this time. And that's kind of what I hear you even saying. It's, yeah, technically you can waste and lose time, but God can restore it.
Yes.
And so how do you think we deal with that new reality? Because it's not over yet.
Right.
We have this new information. Justin, how do you think we deal with that now? Knowing one day I'll get a chance to restore it.
Sure.
Or even start now. Speak to that.
Yeah, because we don't know. I mean, I want to say that everything will be back in a few weeks. Chris, are you okay with no basketball? I was praying for you. Are you doing all right?
I'd say my favorite sports, my favorite event all year long, not Metro related, is the NFL draft. And that's happening in like 4 or 5 days. And if that's ruined because of all this,
oh man,
I don't think you're going to like the version of me until next April.
The locust is chewing on stuff. But yeah, I think that there is, like I said, 2 sides to the coin. And what we're talking about right now, this front part, is things that are outside of our control, which is most things. Most things in our life are outside of our control. The only thing you can control in life is you. I am married and I have a 4-year-old son, and I can't control my kid. I can't control my wife. I can't control
already.
4. It's crazy. But you can't control other people. You can't control relationships. You can't control circumstances. So most things in your life are outside of your control. And when things outside of your control bring destruction or ruin to the fruit that you were trying to harvest, God says, hey, I will take care of that. I will restore, I can redeem. And the things that I wanted to do in the first place, I'm going to continue to do. But I do think that there's another side to the coin. If I can't control 99% of my life, there is the 1% that I'm responsible for. There is a responsibility to use the time that I've been given and how to handle that time. So this, I think I want to draw a little bit from, I'm going to hop around a bit, but from Matthew 24, Jesus is talking a bunch. This is toward the end of his ministry. And so he's starting to talk like crazy. Up until this point, he's like, don't talk, don't tell anyone, let's keep this quiet. And now he's just plainly saying things. And he says in 24:36, he's talking about being ready for his appearing. And he says, no one knows the exact day and time. And he talks about how it's like Noah and the flood, that everyone was just chilling. And then the flood hits and no one was ready for it. He says, that's how it's going to be one day. And he equates it to like a homeowner who he says, if the homeowner knew that a burglar was coming in the night, he would be standing outside with a shotgun to make sure that that burglar is not getting in. But none of us know the exact time or hour. So what Jesus is saying is you have to be ready and you have to live ready for when I return. But I think there's more than just this like apocalyptic language. He's basically saying that our life should be one of readiness. There is, in his language here, a sense of urgency. And I think urgency is a huge part of this conversation because it's the way that we should live all of our lives. It's how, when I read the New Testament, I know, Chris, like when you're reading Paul, I feel like there's times where I can tell that his pen was writing harder. Like he just feels, he feels so urgent about what he's saying because he lived with the awareness that this could be it. This could be the big one. If COVID-19 is the big one, have I been living the way that I should? I don't believe it's the big one, but if it was, or if the next thing that happens, or if the next thing that happens, like, am I aware of the fact that this life is temporal and there's an urgency? So right after he says this, he then moves into the next chapter, which is one of the most famous parables. He talks about this master who gives gold to his servants. And to the first one, he gives 5,000 gold coins. To the second one, he gives 2,000 gold coins. And to the third one, he gives 1,000 gold coins. And so the first one, it says in verse 16 of Matthew 25, he went out and immediately traded the money, doubled his investment. In the same way, the one who was entrusted with 2,000 went out and traded the sum and doubled his investment. But the one who'd been entrusted with 1,000 gold coins dug a hole in the ground and buried his master's money. After time had passed, the master returned to settle the accounts with his servants. To the one who he had entrusted 5,000 gold coins, he came and brought 10, and he said, see, I've doubled your money. And the master said, well done. You've proven yourself to be loyal and trustworthy. And moving on, then the one who'd been given 2,000 says, look, master, I doubled. Same thing. Well done. You've proven yourself to be loyal and trustworthy. Come celebrate with me. And then the one who'd been entrusted with 1,000 came to his master and said, look, sir, I know that you're hard to please. You're shrewd. You're a ruthless businessman who grows rich on the backs of others. So I was afraid of you, and I went and hid your money and buried it in the ground. But here it is. Take it. It's yours. Angered by what he heard, the master said, you're untrustworthy and lazy. If you knew I was so shrewd and ruthless, who always makes profits, why didn't you at least deposit my money in the bank? Then I would have received it all back with interest at least. But you were unfaithful. So I'll take the 1,000 and give it to the one who has 10,000. For the one who has been given more until he overflows with abundance will be given. And the one who has hardly anything, even what little he has will be taken from him. Which doesn't sound like Jesus. It's a really harsh parable. But when you look at it for what it's talking about, the master certainly is not losing his patience and he's not getting so frustrated over 1,000 coins because these other dudes just brought him in like 14,000 gold coins. So it's not about the 1,000. It's about the fact that this servant was entrusted with something and had time to do something with it, and he did nothing with it. And to me, that is the aspect of responsibility that I was talking about, that it is possible for us to waste our time when it comes to what we have been entrusted with. And here's what I really want to distinguish, because I know this is heavy, and I don't want someone to feel like, dang it, I messed it all up, I'm done. Here's what I want to distinguish, that the first servant got 5,000 coins. The second servant got 2,000 coins. This guy was given 1,000, and that does not diminish his value. It doesn't make him less than the others. And for students who are going through this season right now, yeah, the class before you probably got way more opportunity given to them. It feels like they got more given to them, but you are not less because you've been given less. God is not looking for how much you can produce on the same plane with everyone else. He's looking for what you can produce with what you've been given. And that is where the measure of responsibility comes in. He's not looking for what you can't do. He's looking for what you can do. And this is more than, this parable goes beyond just the financial aspect. He's talking about, what did you do with what I gave you in the time that you had? I think one of the biggest phrases in that passage is, after time had passed, the master came back. He comes back ready to see, what did you do with all that time? Because time was the responsibility that I entrusted you with. Because now we're going to get like super meta. Think about what we're talking about. Time, which God lives above and outside of. And yet he placed us, you and me, and Metro, City of Life, and he placed the church within this construct that he does not live in. He put us in time for a reason. And I believe that reason is so that we could bring him glory in time, using the measure of our days, using the month of quarantine, the 3 months of quarantine, the year of quarantine. I rebuke that in Jesus' name. But whatever time we've been given, in that time, taking what we've been given and glorifying him. And so I think that's the responsibility. I do think that you can waste time by not doing what he's called you to do in your season. And right now that looks like Zoom calls and FaceTimes and posts and getting closer to him and waking up and worshiping him and reading his word. Whatever it is, do something. God's not looking for 10,000 coins if he only gave you 1,000, but he's looking for you to do something with it. And I think that's the responsibility, the urgency. And if nothing else, I'm hoping that this crisis shows us as a church how to live with urgency, that every moment matters. Every time we gather together, it matters. Every conversation matters. And I don't want to waste that. Yes, he'll take care of the things I can't control, but what I am in control of, he's expecting me to be responsible for. And we always talk about wanting to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. That comes from this passage. And it comes from someone who has said, look, with the time you gave me, here's what I did. And I've done a lot of, I don't know why this comes to my mind, but I've done a lot of funerals, and I've done funerals for 101-year-old men, and I've done funerals for infants. And some of them feel really unfair. You know, like you see someone who served God his whole life, and it's kind of, if you will, like a little bit easier to do a funeral like that, but a teenager, a young child, and those things feel wrong and they feel unfair. But I don't believe that God looks at someone and says, what did you do with the time that you didn't have? No, certainly not. He doesn't judge us for what we can't do. He's only looking for what we did with the time that he gave us. And that's what he made us for. You and I are here right now. We're breathing, we're living, and we can do something with it. He picked us for COVID-19. He didn't pick Paul. He didn't pick Peter. He picked Chris. He picked Justin. He picked Metro. He chose us to be alive at this moment. He sets each member in the time and space and sets out their boundaries of where they would live so that it would reach for him. And so I think our responsibility is to take what we've been given and reach and multiply and be fruitful through all of this.
Jeez, I hope that no one was looking at my side of the screen this whole time, because my mouth was as open as it gets. Because you're so right, and you made a statement. Is this the big one? You know, and well, you made a lot of statements. Let me make sure I don't point out just the one, make it seem like you only made one, because that was so deep. But is this the big one? The truth is, it doesn't matter if it's the big one or my one.
Right.
It's gonna happen, and that's so. We don't live with a sense of urgency. We live with a sense of entitlement, almost like the time will pass and all of my dreams will come true because time passed.
Right.
It's like, no. And this is insane. You want to say something?
Well, I'm just thinking like this reference came to mind, the Olympics, which I hope they happen at some point because they're my favorite thing ever. But like, think about the way a sprinter runs. Certainly everyone looks at that sprinter and says like, you got to just give it all, like, because you have only a short amount of time. But if you ask a marathon runner, like, hey, can you mail it in on mile like 11? Mile 11 doesn't really matter. Yeah, certainly it does. Because even though this is a big race, there's still urgency to it. And the way that I handle this mile or that mile still matters. It's going to affect the entirety of my race. And so if we look at our singleness as something that doesn't matter, or our dating or our engagement or our marriage or our first job or our transitional job or our internship as something that doesn't matter, we are affecting the entirety of our race. There should be urgency in every season to glorify God, because that's what makes a race worth running. And if you can't have urgency and purpose in this moment, then you haven't looked hard enough, because this is it. This is all you have. Tomorrow's not promised. So this can be the fullness of your purpose here today.
I'm so glad I get to be your friend.
Oh, I feel the same
Okay.
way.
Here's the crazy thing. I was reading Hebrews 11 and 12 again this morning.
Mm.
Just reading it again this morning. I was going to say this right before I said you want to say anything. Everyone watching, listen, he did not mention race at all. This just shows the kindred spirit I was talking about. Reading 11 and 12 this morning. 11 is the hall of faith, right? That's where by faith, Cain, Abe, Paul, all those folks, right?
Mm.
It ends with, but 39 and 40 ends with, but they actually haven't seen their promise answered because we have to be restored to perfection with them.
Come on.
So he says, like, I don't remember the exact word he says, but he's like, technically what Paul is saying and what the Holy Spirit is saying through Paul is all of those people did all of those things. They went through martyrdom, the mouth of lions, they went through all that, and they haven't even gotten the full benefit of it because God is holding that off to say, no, there's room for other people.
Yeah.
To run their race.
It's a relay race.
Yeah. And then it goes to 12 and it says, so since we're surrounded by this crowd, run your race well.
Come on.
And in a moment, like you just said, it compares the race of a college student at Florida International University to that of Abraham. And he's saying, run yours.
Yeah.
Because the only reason you have a race to run is so you can be brought into perfection with him.
We're holding that baton. We're holding the baton.
The same baton!
Passed to us by Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Peter and Paul and James and Jesus. Like, we're holding that baton, and we think that, we're benched, but it's in our hands. We're here. And so I think that sense of urgency matters so much. And that sense of urgency transcends circumstantial changes. That's why Paul was like, hey, I'm content if I'm well fed or hungry, if I'm in prison or not.
I'm good.
He says, hey, I'm in prison, fine. I'll write 2/3 of the Bible because it doesn't matter what my circumstance is. I still got the clock running and I've got time here and I won't waste it.
Jeez. I said it this morning to my friend. If there was a hall of Christianity when all of time was over, there would be more people after the Bible was written than people from the time it was written and before.
That's the point. If it's not that, we're doing it wrong. Way. Yeah, exactly.
People think that was a really spiritual time, and everything else after it, we don't have the same access. And I think that's...
Nah, man. That would be a horrible movie. No movie works that way. It gets better. It goes up from there.
And so to think that's so good, Justin. I mean, the urgency, because yes, technically I'm on mile 4 or 5 of an 80-year life.
Right.
But there's people taking 4 and 5 a lot more serious than me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to sit here and make it seem like God hasn't done what I've asked him to do on mile 19.
Right.
I was like, remember that time I gave you for mile 4 and 5 that you squandered?
Yeah, there was a hill. Yeah, there was a mountain. Yeah, it was hard. It was hard terrain. You were running in sand, but it's the same race.
And at this point, everyone's got the same race.
Level playing field.
And as you're talking, I had this thought for the first time. I wonder if this is what it took to get our generation to realize how much we were personally taking for granted.
Yeah.
Like I understand every generation takes something for granted. But dude, the truth is we have never seen a war on our home turf before. Mm-hmm. We have never really had to fight something together like past generations.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is what it has taken us to say, okay, we can be more connected to everything. but it doesn't mean we are more connected because we have an Instagram.
Mm.
We have to literally get in the driver's seat and work and drive and connect and use that, because what we find is, yes, you build all of these followers, and that means nothing. It means nothing. I kind of feel like I've been watching a lot of mob movies. I'm sorry. Think about what happens when you get money illegally. You can't use it the same way that you can use the money you gained legally.
Spoken like a true Italian.
Yes. Oh, geez. Hey.
You got to talk to somebody.
I mean, come on over. So here's the deal. All the mob movies, at some point, every mobster's story involves trying to make their money clean.
Yeah.
Because they can't use it.
Right.
Everyone is trying to get this self-worth through, or not even self-worth, but like to make it seem like we've done something, so now we don't have to be urgent because we've got these followers or it's happened. But that's like dirty money that you can't use.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have to translate that to a spouse that respects you,
right?
Kids that look up to you, a job that has meaning, resources that go farther than just your individual need. And I'm just getting really excited. It's like there's an urgency that, bro, the time passing and moving on and our follower growing, all that crap, it equates to nothing.
Right.
If we aren't in the driver's seat being intentional.
Yeah, because we're a generation that has been whining and crying for individuality. And I feel like in some ways we are getting because isolation is just you with you. And so now people are seeing to the full end what it is to be individual. And I think this is going to teach our generation how much we need each other, how much we need relationship, and how much we need connection, how we need to serve each other. Because I feel like it's like in the Old Testament when the people like whined God, like we want, instead of just manna, we want meat. And he says, fine, you'll have so much meat, you'll puke it out your nose. And I feel like it's like, God, I love me. Everyone's talking about me. Well, you're about to have more me than you could ever put up with for sitting in your home, like realizing like, hey, there's more to my life than me, man. And if that's a lesson the church can learn right now from this craziness, praise God, because we can come out of this better, and we can come out of this with having doubled what God has entrusted us with, to say, Master, look what I did with what you gave me. I had an individualistic, independent perspective, but I took that and I leveraged it on how to create ways to help other people and how to be a voice in my generation. I served my family. Here's what I did with the measure you gave me.
Jeez. I can't believe 30 minutes have passed already.
Wild. I can. We're usually on the phone for hours.
That is so true. I literally had to tell my family before, like, hey, how did your night go? I was like, I called Justin. That was my night.
I just need to put this out there. I know that I can sound all eloquent, but when I'm on the phone with Chris, I can talk all this talk, but I'm like, what do I do, bro? Tell me, what do I do? He keeps me on track. So you need a friend like that.
That's so stupid. He's so good. I can't believe it. I guess to try to bring this into a close, you guys just got a glimpse. I don't think we preach to each other as much as we debrief with each other.
Literally.
And it comes across, because listen, man, you can't get through this life without preaching to yourself.
Mm-mm.
You can't do it. You can't do it. And so, especially this time, and to kind of wrap this up, I want to give you about, I guess, 2 or 3 more minutes to speak to one more thing. But you just said something, and it made me kind of almost feel like I asked you the wrong question at the beginning. Because the truth is, we're not losing time. We've actually been gifted more of it.
Yeah.
We have more time right now than we've ever had. So in a few minutes, because I don't want Zoom to cut us off here because I'm too cheap to get the paper. What do you think we should be doing with the gift of time that we have right now?
Yeah. I think that, so something my pastor said to me that I got mad at, which means that you need to hear it. If you get mad at something when your pastor says it, he said, if your life has been shaken to its core by the breaking down of your schedule, then it shows that, like I was saying earlier, your schedule has taken too much of a place of importance. I think, like Chris, you're saying, we've been gifted with a clean slate. And for a lot of us, for people like me, that maybe was really hard for you, because who am I if I'm a clean slate? Who am I if I'm not a graduating 4th year med student? Who am I if I'm not a college athlete moving on with my scholarship and signing. Like, who am I if I'm not these things? And if we can put aside the fear that comes with that question and actually peer into what that question is, who am I without all of these things? I think we are postured to realize how much we need Jesus. I don't care if you've been in church your whole life. I think church people are probably dealing with it worst of all, because we don't know who we are without all this stuff. But if we use this time to realize that, like Paul said, I know whose I am. I know who I belong to, and I'm content in any situation because of Christ. I think this is an opportunity for us to find that relationship with Jesus, the kind we preach about, the kind we praise about, the kind we clap about. We have a chance to prove it right here. And if we can do that, I think it'll be a return on what God has entrusted us with. I'll end it with this. He entrusted me and you with this time. So we have a chance to return it back to him better and say, look, here's what I did with it. You still have control. You don't have control of all the other stuff, but you have control of what you do with what you've been entrusted with. And I know you want to hear what I want to hear, which is, well done, servant. You've been faithful. So let's do it. That's what it's about.
Amen. You know, more millionaires today made their money after the house market fell apart.
It's true.
And some people decided to step into a scary season while others didn't.
Yeah.
I think that's just what we have to do. There's greatness on the other side of this computer, man. Mm-hmm. Anyone watching, there's greatness in them. Yes. And if you just decide in this season to step into it, like, yes, you're tired. Yes, we all wake up tired.
It's true.
We wake up with 1/3 energy, man. But if you use that, like Justin said, with urgency, and you step into that, I believe there are millionaires in more than just a financial sense. Yeah. Billionaires that will come out of this because some people decided, because they heard Justin McNeil on a Monday night, they decided to step into it. Justin, thank you so much for being here, man.
Oh my gosh, I love you guys. I want to be there for real sometime soon.
And we'll make it happen, buddy. Be blessed.
Love you.
I know you were blessed by that conversation. And I just want to turn your attention to something that 1 Peter chapter 5 says, where it says, resist the devil, standing firm in your faith, knowing that your brother and sisters are going through the same thing everywhere. And that's one of the things that my relationship with Justin embodies for me. Whenever I can get on the phone with him, I'm reminded that my problems are not my own. In fact, everyone is going through similar things, and that just helps me get by. I hope that this kind of conversation today encourage you, and it reminds you that during this season, God is more in control than we may see. We can't possibly lose or waste time when God is involved. And we just want you to know that our pastors, Pastor Steve and Mary, myself, our whole team, we are praying for you and believing that God is going to turn this around, not only on the global scale, but in the individual scale in your life. And we are believing that. In fact, we just want to pray. Father, we thank you so much for every single person watching this service, every person tuning in, whether as we are live or watching back. And we're just believing you will give them exactly what they need, exactly where they are, exactly when they need it. Lord, our expectation is as big as it's ever been as we turn to Ephesians 3:20, believing you will exceed our very expectations, even in times like this. In Jesus' name, amen. Church family, thank you for joining, and be blessed.